Hey, what's up everybody? So today I'm going to show you how to get started really quickly with your animated video. I kind of just thought of this as I was working on a project, so I kind of want to give you a really smooth workflow to get things done fast. Alright, so let's get right into it. So the first thing I did was I had received an audio file from a client and I needed to have it turned into text or transcripted. So what I did was I went to Otter AI and uploaded my audio file and it transcribed it for me. So here I have the entire transcription, and then I went to export it. Now when you export it, if you want it in a format other than text, all right, so over here if you want to document, PDF, SRT, or any of those, you got to pay for it. So I just decided to copy it to my clipboard, and I'm going to show you why. All right, so once I had copied it to my clipboard, I went to Gemini. Now I use Gemini more than anything else. I've been really happy with the prompts it gives me. We don't have to get into it, but if you're not using Google Gemini, I highly suggest that you give it a shot. So I basically said I am creating an animated short video to the following script. I need ideas as well as Midjourney prompts to create each of the characters mentioned in this story. Determine a prompt to craft the scene/locations as well. So as you can see, I copied and pasted it directly from the clipboard into Google Gemini, and then what it did was it identified all the characters that were in the audio file or the narrative, and also gave me some ideas of a Midjourney prompt. Now those are a little bit too simple for me, so we're going to get into what I did with those. So I have the mother, the son, all right, places, locations, things like that. Now what I did next was I said brainstorm scenes for the script. It has to be heart-wrenching with a happy ending though. Also suggest a fitting animation style like realistic, rotoscope, anime, anything like that. And then suggest a color palette, because you know that colors have a lot to do with the emotions in a film. All right, so I wanted to suggest a color palette, and then also suggest the camera type and the film type. Now different cameras will capture things different ways based on what you're trying to convey, as well as the type of film. So I always like to specify that inside of Midjourney. So here it is, heart-wrenching scenes with a happy ending. Gave me all of the scenes right here. So I have about 6 scenes, and then it said, have limited animation, so maybe lean more towards the realistic style. And it explains why. It suggested a desaturated color palette, and then warm accents as well. Said camera and film type if the realistic style is chosen. We've got a handheld camera. I actually wouldn't have thought about that. It says why. The film stock, all right, and then gave me some keys to success. So I'm like, okay, I love that, but let's get started on the character design and the prompts for Midjourney. So this is what I did. I asked Gemini to provide the prompts using realistic style for each scene that it had mentioned before. So I'd like to use these as starting points for the characters and settings, because I'm going to be adding more, all right, to each scene. But these are just the starting points, so I can know what the character looks like. I can get character reference and style references and all that stuff to keep everything consistent in the film. So specify camera and film type in each. I describe what the characters are, and I describe them that way because that's how the client had described them to me in the initial interview. All right, and then I said I don't want them to look like a typical homeless person or what we would expect homeless people to be like, out of respect for those that are going through hard times, because normal people will go through hard times and can be homeless as well. So I didn't want to have that stereotype in there. So after thought, it gave me the character notes right there, the time stamp, the emotion, the prompt, and then the camera and film type. Now what's really cool is I now have basically a storyboard. So I know between 8 seconds and 20 seconds, this is going to be my scene. 55 to minute 29, there you go. And with each scene, you notice, based on the emotion, it changes. So here, we're going to tight framing, wide angle, Fujifilm Superior, all right? That's what we're doing there. Whereas in scene 1, we're using handheld and Kodak Portra 400. So, as you can see, as we go down each one, it's explaining why steady camera, because there's a relentless process of, from their story. Cinestill, which I use a lot, slightly more cinematic. And then down here, steady camera, Kodak Gold 200, Kodak Ektar 100, and then finishing up with the warm, flattering skin tones of the Portra 400 and steady camera signifying stability. So I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anybody, so I asked who are all the characters in the story, and it named all of the characters in the story for me. So there you go. Oh, one more thing. So I copied the initial scene and I put it into Midjourney, and I was given these pictures. Now, Midjourney 7 is amazing. I went through the personalization process of rating 200 images or more. My global profile is realism. If I want to do anime or something like that, rotoscope animation, I'll create another profile. So, but right now, the main things that I do are realistic people. So I did personalization on, and then in draft mode, which is a new feature of Midjourney. So it's faster, and you can say, hey, do I really like these? Do I want to change up the prompt a little bit? And then once you get what you like, you can turn off draft mode and create, the high resolution image. So I'm actually going to change this. These mothers look, fairly senior, and trying to be politically correct here. And she's kind of, I want a younger mother, all right? Kind of a younger mother. So I can run another prompt, or I can do some variations with this. But that's how I get started. So all of this really took probably less than 10 minutes to go from an audio file all the way to a script to my initial images. So if this was helpful, please hit that like button, share it with others, and would really appreciate it if you would subscribe, and look forward to sharing my next project with you. Take care. Bye-bye.